Hi, my name's Bruce Gilley. I'm a professor of political science at Portland State University and the author of a new book in German called In Defense of German Colonialism. I became interested in German colonialism while writing a book about the British colonial official Sir Alan Burns, who is shown here on the upper left. Sir Alan fought against German colonialists in German Cameroons during World War I. This is a letter he wrote to his wife while he was aboard the SS Apam, preparing to disembark and fight in the Cameroonian town of Douala. I was surprised in studying Sir Alan's time in World War I about the support and legitimacy the Germans seemed to enjoy among the native populations, and the hard work the natives put in fighting for the German colonial establishment. In December 2019, I was given an opportunity to present some of my ideas about the German colonial past to the AfD faction in the German Bundestag. The AfD, or the Alternative for Germany, is the only political party in Germany willing to question and second-guess the perceived wisdom that German colonialism is evil and that Germany somehow owes reparations to those it colonized. German colonialism was very short, from about 1884 to 1914, when German colonies were seized at the Treaty of Versailles, and it can essentially be broken into the four major colonies in Africa, a very small colony in the northern Chinese town of Qingdao, plus two colonies in the South Pacific composed of multiple islands. I begin the book with a chapter on German Southwest Africa, because for most people the only thing they know about German colonialism was that something terrible happened in German Southwest Africa in 1904 to 1906. The war between the German colonial state and two small groups, the Nama, whose leader is here on the right of the German governor, and the Herero, whose leader is here on the left, forms a central part of the anti-colonial narrative about German colonialism. And I argue in this chapter that that narrative is false, that there was no genocide, only a tragic confrontation between the colonial state and these two groups that would have come one way or another as environmental and economic conditions changed rapidly. The largest chapter is devoted to the largest colony, German East Africa, today known as Tanzania. Here's three soldiers in the German East African Corps, so-called Askari soldiers, having some time out, playing a game. These soldiers are famous for their loyalty to the German colonial state. Germany's achievements in German East Africa, I argue, were legion. It created the foundations of viable economy and massively increased health outcomes and the potential for self-government. The only issue that is raised here is respect to a rebellion called the Majimaji. And I cite Tanzanian scholars saying that the Majimaji Rebellion was a just war conducted by the Germans against a slaving state that was unhappy about being deprived of its rights to plunder other tribes for slaves and their wealth. There are chapters in turn on German Togoland and the German Cameroons. The world doesn't hear much about these places, largely because they were very successful. German officials moved effortlessly among West African natives. They supported their indigenous trading economy. They built infrastructure. They created job opportunities. And they dealt with border issues that would not have otherwise be resolved peacefully. German rule was so popular in the Cameroons that when the Germans were defeated in 1918, 18,000 Cameroonians, as well as 117 Cameroonian chiefs and their entourages, fled with the Germans to neutral Spanish territory. One of the greatest German contributions during their colonial period was the discovery of what became the cure for sleeping sickness by Robert Koch, who was leading microbiological research in East Africa and died before the invention of what became the cure for sleeping sickness. Koch also made major contributions to tropical disease control throughout Africa and in India. And in terms of lives saved, estimates are somewhere in the range of 1 to 2 million Africans saved simply through the interventions of the German colonial medical missions in the continent. This is a picture of a sleeping sickness center where natives could go to be checked for and eventually inoculated against sleeping sickness. The German colony in Qingdao on the north coast of China was small but politically significant. It was seen as the Hong Kong of the North, And indeed, it was every bit as successful as British colonial rule in Hong Kong. It took a small, largely uninhabited fishing port and transformed it into a major economic center that the Chinese fled to and sought to live in if possible. The founder of modern China, Sun Yat-sen, went to Qingdao and praised the German colonial achievement and said that Chinese officials from all over China should come and study German methods. This is a picture of a bakery in Qingdao. The tragedy of Qingdao was that when World War I came, the British allowed the Japanese to take the lead in occupation, and the occupation by the Japanese set off a reaction in China that eventually led to the rise of the Chinese Communist Party. Today in Germany, colonial statues are toppled amidst a panic of anti-racism and anti-colonialism. Rent seekers from the former colonies come to Berlin demanding changes in road signs and reparations. But as my book argues, Germany has every reason to be proud of its colonial achievement. It set off development and democratization in all of the places it ruled. It had very strong support from the natives. And but for its being stripped of its colonies at Versailles in 1919, a far more moderate and cosmopolitan German political system might have emerged in the interwar period. The case for German colonialism will be issued in English in 2022. Until then, brush up on your German and learn something about this fascinating but little known episode in colonial history.